Well, it's a beautiful sunny afternoon, and this is a very tranquil beach. And it's strange because those hills across there, well, that's the Lake District, one of the most visited parts of the British Isles. And this stretch of water is the Solway Firth. That puts me in southwest Scotland, in Dumfries and Galloway, which is a really quiet corner of Scotland, a place that still feels wild. On my journey along the beautiful coastline, I will take in some of its stunning wildlife before heading inland to contrasting habitats and Britain's biggest forest park. And hidden deep in this woodland, I hope to catch a glimpse of one of our rarest carnivores. My final destination lies above the tree line in the spectacular open moorland of the Galloway Hills. It's like a greatest hits of natural Scotland in one short trip. I'm starting my journey on Lmuk Sands near Castle Hill Point. What a quiet, serene piece of beach. If I closed my eyes, I could easily convince myself I was in Tasmania or Northern Australia or somewhere like that. Especially when I look at features like this reef forming on the rocks here. This is the home of the honeycomb worms that land as plankton and then grow and create these structures by cementing together bits of sand and broken shell. Once there's a colony established, the scent apparently draws others in, and you end up with what is the marine worm equivalent of a high-rise tenement block. Just a couple of miles down the shore, there is another remarkable structure, but this one is man-made. Stake nets have been used on the Solway Firth for more than 1,000 years. As the fish are carried in and out on the tide, a wall of netting guides them into traps. I join Peter Hutchinson, collecting his catch as the tide retreats. What a lovely day to come and check some nets.
It is. Warm as it goes down here.
Oh,
so
it's beautiful.
Primarily we're fishing for salmon, grilse and sea trout, but intermixed with that we've got quite a nice spread of whitefish. We've grey mullet, which are very tasty.
Very nice. So it really is a complete gamut of edible fish.
It is.
That's amazing. Is this a traditional netting spot?
This particular one goes back to 1867, but along the Solway coast, when I was a youngster, there used to be probably 50 or 60 stake net fisheries like this. Now you can probably say working fisheries, just 5 or 6.
Right.
Let's see if we've anything in the first pocket.
Yeah, why not? Oh, what have we got here? Some jellyfish.
Yeah, I'll lift a big one for the boys.
That's a marvel of nature, isn't it? They look like aliens to me.
They do indeed. You see all the petticoats on her. Now, I wouldn't be doing this with some of the ones we get later in the summer, which really do give you a nasty sting.
Really stings, yeah.
Well, it's
what have we got here?
Got a nice flounder and well made up for this time of the year, Ray. So I think we'll pop them in the net and go on and see what we've got in the next pocket. Good. 2 little mullet.
Yep.
They're smallish, but here their flavours are tremendous because they're living off the cockles, and you can see they're quite thick-lipped, almost the detachable fronts for breaking down the mollusk shells. But quiet tide, Ray, very quiet tide.
That's a biggie. Yeah, I've heard some scientists saying that we'll all have to get used to eating jellyfish. They're worried, aren't they, about them taking over? I think I prefer mullet.
Yes. I'll have the mullet.
There's nothing better than an open fire on the beach to prepare a feast of freshly caught fish. So we're going to need a good bit of embers.
Right.
And then the cooking's really quick. Lovely.
There we are, Ray.
And I'm going to put that, everything inside it still, straight on the fire.
Oh, lovely.
That's not going to take long.
You can almost see it change colour as quickly as that, can't you? That looks about there, Ray, to me.
It looks good, doesn't it?
It looks wonderful.
And now, to enjoy it.
And that is gorgeous.
perfect,
That
isn't
is
it?
really gorgeous.
That's really, truly spectacular fish.
It certainly is.
It doesn't get much better than this, does it? And when the tide comes in, it'll do the
Brilliant.
washing up for us.
And it even cleans your plate for you.
That was absolutely delicious, but now I'm heading a little further down the coast to a very different habitat. I'm meeting Kirsty Griffiths, who is responsible locally for the conservation of Britain's rarest amphibian, the natterjack toad. This nature reserve benefits from the warming effect of the Gulf Stream, providing a perfect environment for the natterjack in spite of being so far north. But this winter's weather has put the entire population at risk.
After January, February and March, with all the high tides and the high winds, this is what's left of our sand dunes.
All gone.
Oh, it's all gone.
There would have been dunes between us and the wind farms over there.
And now there's nothing.
Staggering. The toads were hibernating in the sand when the storms rolled in. Kirsty feared the worst, but there's good news wriggling through the reserve's ponds.
So if you look down in the water, there's some little black dots swimming around, and the little ones are natterjack toad tadpoles, which is absolutely amazing because we thought they weren't going to be here. So for them to actually have spawned is an amazing accomplishment this year.
I'm keen to see the adult natterjacks, and the best time to find them is at dusk when they emerge to look for a mate.
Oh, look what I found, Ray.
That's good. Look at that.
Look at that. Oh,
Yeah, it's
hello.
squeaky. Kirsty has permission to handle this endangered species as part of her conservation work.
If you look, it's got the lovely golden stripe. And each toad actually has their own dorsal walk pattern, which is a bit like our fingertips. So you can actually go and photograph them and find out exactly how many you've got, which is absolutely fantastic.
You can identify individuals.
Yeah, and I can see this one's a male, because if you look under the chin, it's blue under the chin,
Yeah.
and it's also got some black fingernails. And what they do is they use them to hold on to the female. So this one's looking for a lady tonight.
He's quite vocal, isn't he?
He is. Well, this is the sort of time of day when they come out and they start singing for their females.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's time to let this one go back on his night out.
Yes, and hopefully he'll be lucky tonight and find a lady.
There you go. Really lovely to see. Beautiful. One of the things that's fascinating about conservation is just how important reserves can be. The natterjack toads survive here by miracle, really. Who knows what will happen in coming years? The more reserves we have, the better chance there is that we hold on to species. And if there's one thing I've learned over the years that I've been working with nature, is that one of the most important things that a human being can do is to act to increase and preserve biodiversity. If we lose that, we lose everything. The next stage of my journey will take me deep into the Galloway forest and closer to a very special and elusive animal. I've come to Dumfries and Galloway, an area of truly beautiful and very varied landscapes, tucked away in a quiet corner of Scotland. Now I'm heading away from the shoreline and inland to Galloway Forest Park, the biggest in Britain at 300 square miles. It's been great to spend time near the water, but this is really what Galloway is all about. Huge conifer forests. They reckon there are over 1 million trees growing here. Now, while that's largely commercial forestry, it's still habitat for wildlife, and there are some real gems to be seen here. Where is he? Where is he? I'm off on the scent of one of our most elusive woodland creatures. The pine marten was once the second most common carnivore in Britain. It's now the second rarest. These mammals are part of the same family as weasels and ferrets. They live in densely wooded areas and they are notoriously shy. Johnny Burks and John Martin with their dogs Dooley and Seller, are tracking pine marten activity in Galloway Forest Park.
Where is he? Good girl.
One of the things we do is try and detect evidence of pine martens in the form of droppings, the scats on the tracks. They tend to use these as their toilets after breakfast. They'll mark territory. Our eyes are reasonably good, but the dogs' noses are so much more effective. Oh, what's she got? What's she got? What's she got?
Good girl.
Well done, well done.
What will you do now? Take a GPS reference for where that is?
GPS reference to that, yeah. And put it into a brand new clean bag for DNA analysis.
Great idea to use a dog.
Their sense of smell is just so superior. Foxes, of course, will scat in the same sort of places sometimes. So.
Can the dogs differentiate between the two?
Yeah, no trouble at all. They just don't make mistakes.
That's wonderful. Come on.
The reason we come to Galloway at this time of the year, late May, is because this is when the female martens have got their litters of kits. And last year, the Forest Commission put up 40 new den boxes, and thankfully we've got one with a litter in, we believe, and we'd like to show you what we've got inside.
That would be amazing.
Fingers crossed.
There are no more than a few dozen pine martens in the forest, but the scat on top of this box suggests it could be inhabited.
These are typical marten scat, slightly twisted,
Like they've been
dark.
squeezed out of a toothpaste
Yeah.
tube. Yeah.
Yeah, quite musty. It's not an unpleasant smell. Not like mink, polecat,
Yep,
can
absolutely.
be quite rank. These
Vile.
are, wow, to me it's heavenly. I love the scent. I love the scent of
I
marten
can't
scat.
believe we're having this conversation. This scat is evidence of a breeding female. John opens the box to discover a pair of pine marten kittens.
What always amazes me is how docile they are. And I think this is an adaptation to being born up a tree. And if danger threatens, stay still and pretend everything's okay. So it means that they're really easy to handle.
Wow, look at that. What a wonderful creature. Hello. That is amazing.
You see the strength of those. She's drawing my hand in now. Immense strength in her front legs. Yeah. They're needle-like claws. You see those claws?
And you've got the 5 toes, front and rear.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Gorgeous.
Gorgeous.
They really are, yeah.
There we go. Yeah, I'm bored with this. So the problems they've had in the past, was that persecution?
It was two things really, double whammy. Firstly, forest clearance. It went down to less than 5% woodland cover in the late 1800s. And for a woodland specialist, that's really bad news. Then we had the Victorian and Edwardian gamekeepers came in on the act in the late 1800s, and they don't like pine martens because they're good at climbing into pheasant pens, and so that was an extra burden. In Scotland, at long last, they're doing pretty well now. Legal protection helped a lot, and then increased forest cover.
What interests me is you guys do this all the time, but the sense of wonder is never lost.
No, it's a privilege, it really is.
Really.
Time we got these back in the box, I think.
There we go.
That has got to be one of the neatest things I have ever seen in my travels. Pine martens are very special. They're so difficult to see. And to see those young like that, what a privilege. Quite wonderful. These dense woodlands are also home to some very impressive birds. Dumfries and Galloway is a stronghold for raptors in particular. Former woodcutter Cyril Ostroznik monitors the local population. I caught up with him checking a goshawk nest before we made our way to a nearby buzzard site. Like many birds of prey, this species has thrived as the conifer woods have grown.
I can remember when I was a child going out with my father and there was only 2 buzzard nests. And now with this habitat that was created, man-made, and it's now perfect for all these birds, and that's how they're doing so well.
What have we got here?
You've got the buzzard in there.
Fantastic. I like buzzards.
They're lovely birds, like it.
I'll probably end up putting a head net on down here because the midges are quite bad
quite
today.
right.
I'd watch you from down here. A midge is better up there, aren't they?
There's no many up there, no.
Yeah,
That's why I'm off.
I don't blame you.
But these birds are now facing a new problem. The Forestry Commission, responding to the spread of a deadly tree fungus, the larch disease, has had to fell vast areas of woodland. This has led to overcrowding, as there are now fewer suitable trees to nest in.
There's 3 chicks.
3 chicks.
3 chicks, yes.
So that's the adult buzzard. You can hear it calling there. That mewing call. Very distinctive. Of course, that nest site is probably not the best chosen because nearby there's a goshawk nesting, and that goshawk will need to feed its chicks. It will already have seen the buzzard nest and be thinking, the moment comes, I'll have those. How big are they?
About just under 2 weeks.
2 weeks, okay.
Yeah. Looking healthy for the food.
For how
food
long?
chain.
Yeah.
I don't think they'll last long. Everything's on the menu.
Yikes. That's nature.
I don't want to leave Galloway without trying to track down Scotland's most iconic beast, the red deer. They can be tricky to spot at this time of year. The hinds are starting to give birth, so they can be very jumpy, while the stags tend to tuck themselves away while their antlers regrow, ready for the rut in the autumn. But there is always something very special about seeing Britain's largest land mammal in the wild Scottish landscape. I need local knowledge, and Colin Lockerbie, chief stalker for Galloway's forest estate, is the man for the job.
That's beautiful country, isn't it?
It's a great place to stalk. It's
Not a bad place to work.
it makes my job fairly easy, to be honest. Makes me look good at the job. It's,
My understanding is that the deer here do better than perhaps in the Highlands because there's more food and more shelter.
yeah,
Perhaps a little warmer here.
yeah, and cover for them if they need to come in rougher weather as well.
So where are you expecting to see the deer today?
Yeah, there tend to be more up in the higher ground at the minute. I think if you have a walk down here, Ray, lovely scenery around
Isn't
here.
that lovely?
There's a loch just down here, but I'm fairly confident we'll see some reds around here.
The most important sense for red deer is smell, so we need to keep downwind of any animals. But they are also incredibly alert to unusual sights and sounds, so we move slowly and quietly along the edge of the tree line.
Yeah, Ray, there's a few up there. You see where you've got that brown patch, Ray, on the left? Yeah. You've got one at the bottom, one above it, yeah. Brown patch. Yeah. Come up to the right. To the right in there, I can see them from here. Oh, you got them? Yeah. Yeah.
See 3 there. Quite light coloured at the moment.
Very light colour, yeah.
I think it's an interesting deer, isn't it? Because it really is. It's a woodland animal, but it handles the hills really well. They must like it here because they've got a little bit of both, haven't they? Yeah. The security of the high ground and the cover from the weather.
Yeah.
Rugged country.
A lot of people get surprised when they come around here and see it. Don't expect it around the Galloway Hills.
Yeah.
But to get much closer to them would be quite tricky.
Yeah.
There's a good chance as soon as we cross the open ground there, they could be off.
just take off,
just
yeah.
be off up the hill. Or we could probably get down to the...
Down there.
Down
yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Well, I've worked out that it's 19 years since I've been to this part of Scotland, and it's way too long. This really is a very special corner of Scotland. It's really like a miniature for the rest of Scotland because you can go from the coast to the tops of the mountains in a very short distance. I've got some great memories to take away as well, from watching the wily red deer grazing on the hillside here, to that grey mullet caught in the Solway Firth and cooked on the beach. That was really lovely. But my favourite moment has to be seeing the incredible Scottish pine marten.
Next time, I will be in the Lake District to explore the wild landscapes of the magnificent Borodale Valley.
That's lovely. Beautiful bird.
And I'm reminded just how tricky British rivers can be to navigate.
This week I'm in the glorious Lake District National Park. And of course, when you come to a place like this, it's always good to have a guide. And my guide is going to be this river that rises in the hills just there and flows down through the beautiful Borodale Valley. This is the Derwent River.
Despite the fact that almost 15 million tourists come to the Lake District each year, there are parts like this which remain truly wild. Borodale is England's wettest valley. Its beauty has inspired poets. The isolation has let nature take hold in a spectacular way, creating a unique array of habitats. Here I will be journeying from the high fells along the beautiful River Derwent to open water, through ancient rainforests, taking in the flora and fauna, birds and insects that call this magnificent valley home.
But of course, it is the Lake District, and I am anticipating some rain.
The first stop on my journey is at the head of the valley. These are the intriguing Borodale yews. They are some of the oldest trees in Europe. Tests date the branches at 1,500 years old, suggesting the trunks may be up to 2,000 years old, which means that these trees have been here since before the Romans arrived.
Wow, if that could speak. This is part of a tiny grove of yew trees that were known as the Fraternal Four, as Wordsworth named them. Very, very special to be around such ancient living things. We always think of yew trees associated with cemeteries, but of course, many of the yew trees in Britain were associated with worship long before the arrival of Christianity. And when I look up into the branches, I feel as though I'm in a place of worship. It reminds me of being in a church. They are, though, the tree of life and the tree of death. Just about every part of this tree is poisonous. And yet, today, chemists have found that they can take the poisons found in the trimmings of the branches and use that to treat soft tissue cancers.
But this place is dominated by another tree, so much so that it gave the river its name. Derwent is a Celtic word meaning valley thick with oak. I'm meeting National Trust Woodland Ranger Maurice Pankhurst. It's his job to protect these rare and precious forests, which up until 500 years ago would have covered much of Western Europe. But now Johnny Wood is one of our few remaining rainforests.
Because this is rainforest, isn't it?
It is, yeah. We are literally in rainforest.
Rainforest, yeah, literally today. Because it's wet, which will explain the occasional spot of rain on the lens.
Very wet indeed.
It qualifies as rainforest because it has over 3 meters of rain a year, creating a humid, moist environment which supports hundreds of life forms. This wood has international recognition and has the highest tier of protection afforded to habitats in Europe, but it's not thanks to the trees.
Right, well, you just look round the woodland, look round the woodland floor, look at the trunks of the trees. There's one thing that they have in common. It's these chaps, the mosses, or if you want to give them their correct name, the bryophytes. There are 154 species of moss and liverwort.
Gosh, that's astonishing.
Okay, 154.
And in the ecosystem as a whole, the mosses here, they're holding moisture, aren't they? And they're creating habitat for microfauna. They're really important.
Indeed, yeah. They're a micro-habitat for a massive, massive range of invertebrates, which in turn are, of course, a food source for many of the bird populations that live in and around us. So they are as important as these big chaps, the trees.
Maurice has promised to share another treasure further down the valley. But first, as the rain eases off, I want to experience the heartbeat of this place, the river itself. I'm travelling along the river from its source high up in the fells and onto Derwent Water Lake. In just 6 miles, the river transforms from trickling stream through rushing waters before opening out onto the lake.
Wow, the river is really tranquil today. It's so peaceful, it's heavenly. But it's not always that way. I can see by the amount of detritus and debris on the shore that this river floods at times, and quite seriously so, only to be expected in the mountains. But today it's calm and beautiful. If only Wordsworth was in this boat now, he'd have the words for it. Well, the wild garlic here, the white flower on the bank there. Let's go and have a look at that. A lot of people know this plant. It's very easy to identify because it's got an incredibly pungent aroma. I personally don't like the leaves for food. I find them too strong flavoured. What I do like are sprinkling the flowers like this into a salad. And they're quite strong, so you don't need too many of them. They're much nicer. It's a more subtle flavour. It's a member of the onion family, and so you can use the juice from that as an antiseptic if you need to. But you have to know what you're doing when it comes to wild plants. You just can't go out and munch anything. And growing right beside it is an incredibly toxic plant. This is hemlock water dropwort. All parts of that plant are poisonous, and they're lethally so. It's a very dangerous plant. It's not a plant you should handle or play with, and certainly never eat.
Back on dry land, and Maurice is keen to take me high up on the fells, where one tiny species is busy making its home. Borodale has the biggest population of Britain's largest ant, and at 12 millimetres long, they are 4 times bigger than the common house ant.
This is the northern hairy wood ant, Formica lugubrious. So it's not only the biggest ant in the British Isles, but it builds the biggest nests.
Yeah.
The largest we've recorded is 8.5 metres across.
8.5
8.5
metres
metres across. It's massive. And of course, this is like the iceberg. This is a third.
Yeah.
So you've got another 66% below you. We may have 500,000 in this nest alone.
Yeah. It's astonishing, isn't it?
Yep. Yep. Everybody's busy in an ant hill.
Yeah.
There are several nests like this in the area, and these creatures have a remarkable way of protecting themselves.
We've got to do the trick here. I've got a bluebell, so we see what happens with we get them to squirt their defence, their formic acid onto the flower here.
It doesn't have a poisonous bite, but it sprays a lot of formic acid.
Look at that. When is a bluebell not a bluebell?
When
the wood ants have sprayed it. Nature's litmus paper. That is a lot of formic acid.
Oh, yes.
It's like getting a nose full of vinegar.
It's like being in a chip shop, Ray.
It is. I was once tracking and I bumped into one of these nests and I got an absolute faceful, and it floors you.
Yep.
So for a badger coming along, something like that, it's a pretty effective defence.
Gorgeous.
These ants feast on other insects and worms. They're one of the woodland's best predators, each day bringing back up to 50 times their own body weight in food to the nest.
Here we have a carnivore in miniature. It doesn't matter where you are, Africa, South America, India. you will always find it is ants that are harvesting the most protein out of a system. Even more protein than lions and tigers, simply because of their numbers.
There's another food surrounding the nest.
Ah, you got it?
Pignut is a member of the carrot family, and its root is a rare source of wild carbohydrate. It's a forager's dream.
You have that.
Oh, thank you very much. I'll munch away on that.
Good though. What I think
that
is
is good.
What I think is really interesting about this plant is that perhaps in the Paleolithic, the Old Stone Age, when there were grasslands, there could have been swathes of pignut, and this may well have been one of the staple foods of our ancestors at that time.
Yeah, there's a lot to learn. There's a lot to understand.
It's time for me to head back down to the river, and I catch a fleeting glimpse of one of the treasures of Borodale, the peregrine falcon. I'm determined to see these magnificent birds of prey close up before I leave the valley.
En roulant ma boule roulant, en roulant ma boule.
I'm here in the Lake District, using the Derwent River as my guide to explore the breathtaking Borodale Valley. I'm now just a mile away from the lake, and the river is widening as it snakes down through the valley. Much of this river is protected, as it's considered to be home to some of the very best wildlife sites in the country.
Oh, lovely. Going to come in here. Now I've stopped here because one of the real joys of rivers as habitats is just across on the other bank there. You can see a lot of holes in the riverbank here, and those are sand martin nests, and that's one of my favourite things to see on a river. And they're really quite active. I might stop here for a moment and just watch.
Sand martins are the smallest member of the swallow family and get their name because they burrow into sandy riverbanks like this one to nest. It's really special to see so many because these little birds suffered a catastrophic decline in numbers when severe drought hit the parts of Africa they migrate to in winter. Their numbers are now, thankfully, beginning to climb again.
It's a wonderful thing to see. That's just lovely.
The river may look tame, but all waterways have their dangers, even on a calm day like this.
You have to be careful when you see vegetation like this. Trees across rivers are dangerous. It's an understatement.
British rivers can be just as treacherous as those elsewhere in the world. If you want to explore them by canoe and are not experienced, you must use a guide. I've been doing this for decades, but on a stretch of water that's unfamiliar to me, even I can get caught up. While I dry off a bit, it's a perfect opportunity to enjoy some of the bird life from a less perilous position. Rivers are always great places to spot birds. They're a wildlife corridor in the landscape, a kind of conveyor belt of food. But the Derwent River is special. Thanks to the varied and protected habitats here, the river teems with perching birds. Wagtails are lovers of riverbanks like this. In spite of its name, this grey wagtail is actually very colourful and can often be seen beside fast-flowing mountain rivers. The black and white pied wagtail is pretty sociable, but they can be tricky to spot, especially in the rain. One bird that doesn't mind getting wet is the dipper. This small, plump bird gets its name from its distinctive bobbing movements. They use rocks and branches to peer into the waters below before using their unique talent. Dippers are the only perching bird that hunt underwater. They can walk or swim underwater for up to 30 seconds. But there's one more bird I'm determined to see. To do that, I'll need to get back in my canoe to journey further down the river and onto Derwent Water.
One of the great things about travelling on rivers is feeling the changing mood. And I've come through that beautiful piece of riverine woodland, stunning. Wildflowers all along the banks, some mallards here. But now I've got pasture coming down to the riverbanks, the mountain stretching out before me. I feel that we're coming towards open water.
The author, Alfred Wainwright, wrote extensively about the Lake District and considered Borodale to be its finest valley. And I have to agree.
This is wonderful. It's not something you see every day in Britain. The river here forms a proper delta. And we've got this wonderful marshland, wetland habitat. Really, really good environment. Extremely good for wildlife. And I think that's really the key to Britain's future with wildlife, is to make sure that special places retain their special nature. These mallards just don't want to take off. They're happy with me as long as I'm a boat length away. They're just skipping ahead of me. That's great. Nature is absolutely at the core of human existence, and sometimes I think we forget that. But not when you're canoeing. And here we are, Derwent Water. Isn't that beautiful? You know, when I look at these islands covered in trees, I think it's not too far from Canada. That's exactly how it feels to travel through the Canadian lake systems, real wilderness. But for the moment, I think my journey by canoe is at an end out here.
I have one final leg to my Borodale expedition, and one I hope will be a real delight. I'm heading high up above the lake with National Park Officer Peter Barron, along a path that's a closely guarded secret. This part of the Lake District is one of the best places in Britain to see peregrine falcons. Getting close enough and high enough to see into a falcon's nest is an extremely rare treat.
Just need to sneak up over the brow a little bit.
Onto the brow.
Yeah.
And we're rewarded with an incredible sight.
Here, there we go.
Yeah.
That must be...
That's the female.
Is that the female?
Yeah. That female that's on the nest now is actually brooding chicks. The chicks have actually hatched. So she's been sat on them for roughly a month. And she goes...
So she's nestling down on them at once.
They've been fed.
Yep.
She's picking up the bits. She's cleaning the table.
Yep. That's a fantastic view.
I mean, it's not very warm. It is drizzling, so you know she needs to keep those chicks.
Looks like she is aware of us, actually, doesn't it? I mean, they're quite discreet nests, aren't they? They're not known as great nest builders, are they?
They don't really do anything, I don't think. They just plonk on a ledge, and actually they make quite a mess. There's lots of debris and bones and what have you left at the end.
You can actually see that in front of
some
it.
bits and pieces.
Yeah, you can, yeah. Oh, that's lovely. Beautiful bird.
Peregrine falcons are consummate hunters. Their huge feet and talons mean they can strike, kill and hold their prey with absolute precision. They are also one of the fastest animals in the world.
Well, they've got a reputation of being the fastest killer, haven't they, really?
Yeah.
And 200 miles an hour is oft quoted,
Awesome.
or more. So they are fantastic, yeah. It's gone.
But these proficient predators are under threat themselves. In the past, their eggs have been stolen from this and other sites. They can fetch hundreds of thousands of pounds on the black market. A pet falcon is a valued prize in some parts of the world.
As a consequence of that predation by humans, local people have absolutely taken those birds and what was happening and to heart. And this site we're at now has been watched by local people since the 70s.
I mean, that's the best way, localise,
Yeah.
local knowledge.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, and in a way, that persecution which was occurring actually prompted the local people to do something and watch them and be interested in them. So, you know, maybe sometimes good comes out of bad.
All I can say is well done, the people of Keswick.
Absolutely.
Let's hope that those who want these eggs go elsewhere to find them, or better still, rear their own. Well, the Lake District really hasn't disappointed. In fact, it makes me think I don't come here often enough. It's so beautiful. The River Derwent, what an incredible guide that's been. It unites the two great features of this landscape, the mountains within which it rises and the lake that it flows into. And along the way, all that wonderful habitat. I'm going to take away strong memories of the vegetation on the riverbanks, the dippers, the sand martins and wagtails. But my highlight has to be the peregrine falcon, testimony to what a community can do when they unite to protect wildlife from those who would do it harm.
Next time I'll be exploring the majestic Isle of Skye in search of Britain's largest bird of prey, the sea eagle.
This is as good as anything you'd see on the Serengeti.
And I'll be out on the water looking for a very special new arrival.
Is that the pup there?
It is.
Look how tiny that is. Isn't that magic? I'm really excited. I've flown up to Scotland this morning, I've driven across the Highlands, and now I'm poised before the Isle of Skye.
The Isle of Skye is the largest of the Inner Hebrides, situated just off the west coast of mainland Scotland. Its dramatic landscape is distinctly highland, with mist-covered jagged mountains, wild seas, shimmering lochs, heather-clad moors and sprawling beaches. It's a place of myth and legend, where the very earth tells the story of the ages. The bones and footprints of dinosaurs that once roamed the isle have been unearthed here, along with evidence of Scotland's first settlers who arrived over 8,000 years ago. My journey will take me from the south to the north of the island in search of rare plant species, reclusive birds of prey, and ending up with a wonderful surprise on a trip to a seal colony. I'm getting there the truly romantic way, on this turntable ferry, the last of its kind in Scotland.
Isn't this great? Bit of Highland history. This is the crossing from Glenelg to Skye. You can see the turnstile in action. Fantastic piece of engineering. Hello. The dog's one of the crew. Bit of Highland life.
There's been a ferry here since the late 18th century. It's part of the island heritage and is now run by the community.
This is a great spot to see seals, and when you go out on a boat here, they can come right alongside sometimes. Always worth keeping the eyes peeled, especially when the tide is turning. Brings lots of nutrients in, the fish come in for the nutrients, the seals come in for the fish. There's one there now.
Common seals like these, with their dog-like faces, are curious animals and can often be seen in harbours close to the boats. These incredibly agile creatures can dive for up to 10 minutes, reaching depths of 50 metres. Leaving the seal to its fishing, I catch sight of something I came to Skye hoping to see, Britain's largest bird of prey.
Well, that's a white-tailed or seagull, and is being mobbed by a couple of hooded crows there by the looks of it. And those crows, pretty brave, but they're seeing off a threat as they perceive it. But the eagle doesn't look in the least bit concerned.
The only place in the UK that you will find sea eagles is here, in the Highlands. Once widespread across the whole of the country, they were wiped out in Britain in the early 20th century. Blamed for killing livestock, all were illegally shot or poisoned. The birds returned to the Western Isles in the 70s after being reintroduced from Norway, and it's been a real success, as now 22 pairs live here.
Lovely white tail. You see that fan-shaped white tail, so distinctive. When they sit there, you see a beautiful yellow bill and their yellow legs. It's a really beautiful bird. He's chasing that black-backed gull. What? Keep on him, keep on him. Keep on him, keep on him. The gull has obviously had a fish, and now he wants it. You try and get it to regurgitate it. He's not gonna give in. That is quite a pursuit. Whoa, whoa, look at that. This is as good as anything you'd see on the Serengeti.
The sea eagle has a wingspan of around 8 feet, yet is remarkably agile for such a large bird. During aerial pursuits like this, it can reach speeds of over 60 miles an hour.
This is a battle of endurance now. The eagle wants the meal that the gull has had, and the gull doesn't want to give it up. Tenacity of that eagle. I can hear the gull made a little call there. The gull's calling help. Wow, that is some display. Oh, the eagle's given up. So the gull wins that round. A lot of energy expended there. Well, that eagle's gone down to rest now, but the gull won on this occasion. Fantastic thing to see. One irritated-looking eagle. And now it's being mobbed by the hooded crows again. It's a tough life.
And this is a tough isle, battered and beaten by all sorts of geological forces. The rocks here tell its very history and are amongst some of the oldest in the world, forming over 450 million years ago. The unique landscape we see today was carved by the last ice age, slicing valleys and leaving a legacy of stunning lochs. Intense volcanic activity and spectacular landslides created the isle's famous mountain range, the mighty Cuillins. The evolution of the island brought a wetter climate, and peat bogs appeared on the higher ground, home now to some fascinating plants.
Hello, Nick, how are you doing?
Hello, Ray.
Local botanist Nick Hodgetts is here to tell me more.
The habitat itself is special. The bog there's plenty of it here, but internationally this kind of bog is quite restricted. And because of the relatively warm, wet weather we get by being on the edge of the Atlantic, you get a very special assemblage of plants. Things that demand wet, warm weather and don't like too much frost.
It's the Gulf Stream that warms the air above Skye, protecting it from extreme temperatures and creating ideal habitats for rare plant species.
You get plants growing here that only grow in Scotland, crop up again on the west coast of America, and again maybe in the Himalayas, nowhere else. For example, there's the small louseworts down here.
Beautiful.
A beautiful purple plant with these sort of asymmetrical flowers. And then we've got the milkwort over here. Often bright blue, but sometimes goes all the way to pure white.
But what most excites me about this habitat is the way you can see evolution at work, particularly when you look at carnivorous, insect-eating plants. There are actually 9 species native to Britain, and incredibly, all can be found on Skye. The boggy soil here is thin, and these plants can't get all the nutrients they need, so have adapted and learned to digest the insects that land on them.
This is one of my favourites. I always like to see it, the sundew. It's sits there with leaves that look like a baseball catcher's mitt, covered in little globules of glue. They're little jewels of death. What happens is that the plant puts out a chemical that attracts insects to it. And when they land, they get stuck on these beautiful globules of glue. And then the plant closes over the insect ever so slowly. And it gets all gummed up and asphyxiates as its breathing apparatus gets clogged up. The plant digests the insect and gains its nutrients that way. On a midgy island like this, I'm quite glad to see those, because midges are one of their principal sources of food. There's another carnivorous plant, if you like, just over here that's in flower. These little plants here are called butterwort, and you can see they're in flower. And they look really innocuous and innocent, but of course they're not. Insects get attracted to these too by scent and then are digested. There is a theory that these plants also maybe produce their own insecticide to ensure a more reliable kill. And I've watched them quite a lot. I think there's probably some truth in that. They don't seem to have quite the same apparatus as the sundew, but clearly they're just as effective.
Time to hit the road again and wind my way up to the mountains in the north of the island in search of the most formidable aerial predator, the golden eagle. I'm travelling across the beautiful Isle of Skye in search of the incredible wildlife that have made their home in this unique landscape. Now I'm heading to the north of the island on the trail of one of the rarest and most elusive birds of prey, the golden eagle. Helping me is Alison McLennan, who has been monitoring the eagles on the island for the last 20 years. Skye is perfect golden eagle country, as their natural habitat is high up in these remote rocky crags.
It's too busy here for actual nesting sites, but you know, you do get them drifting along here. Just there's very good thermals, good updrafts on that.
Thermals are rising currents of warm air. The eagles are able to ride the air and climb to higher altitudes, searching for food, using very little energy in the process. This is important as their territories can be huge, up to 150 square kilometres.
What a landscape.
Only 30 of the 400 pairs of golden eagles in Britain live here on Skye, so catching sight of these birds can be like looking for a needle in a haystack.
We're very lucky with the weather today to be able to see that.
But we're not as lucky spotting the golden eagle here, so we press on to another location.
Oh, could be an eagle.
You got one?
Yeah, got an eagle. Just into the blue.
That's it. That's a good spot.
You get a good updraft there, won't you?
Yeah, very.
Golden eagles are the kings of the sky, powerful predators hunting for prey from the air. Once it spots its target, they swoop down at a speed of over 90 miles an hour, striking and killing with its fearsome talons. Their incredible eyesight means they can see prey as small as a mouse from over a mile away. But their main diet here is rabbit.
We've got a special protection area for golden eagles on the island, which is largely over the Coolin Hills area. And they've done some studies of the golden eagles there. And it's interesting that a lot of the flight patterns that show that where they're hunting, it's following all the little rabbit wardens and things that there are around the islands.
Like the sea eagle, the golden eagle once soared all over the UK, but over 100 years ago, they were virtually wiped out by man. Here they survived, but in recent years, numbers have shown a worrying decline. Blamed for killing livestock, some are illegally shot or poisoned, and human disturbance of nests during breeding are the reasons behind the falling population.
People often wonder why they're called golden, but you can just see that there as the rays of the sun glint off of the nape of its neck and the edge of its back. You can see that golden sheen.
And our luck really is in when a second golden eagle appears.
Oh, look at that. 2 birds. That's magnificent. almost like gargoyles of some Victorian building. Do they pair for life?
They do indeed, and life for a golden eagle can be about 25, 30 years. So it's a long partnership they have, but they don't breed every year. And with golden eagles, occasionally they'll rear 2 chicks, but normally it's just the one.
And what about this pair here?
Well, this pair don't seem to be showing any interest in a nest at the moment. The fact that they're out here on the crags loafing around would suggest that they've probably failed in their breeding attempt this year if they did attempt to breed at all.
Oh, there they go. Here comes one. It's coming down in front of the cliffs. Just going up over the edge now, left to right. Oh, look at that. So effortless. I have to admit that this is my favourite eagle. The golden eagle is just such a, wow, it's a magnificent bird.
Oh, look at the shape in the wing there. You can see
That's
that.
magnificent.
Yeah, that very characteristic profile.
Oh, I love it when they fold their wings in like that.
They tuck their wings and just drop like a stone, don't they?
It's magical.
I leave the eagles and these magnificent mountains behind, as now I want to explore the life that lives in the waters that surround this isle. I'm hooking up with local guide and fisherman Mitchell Partridge, who's taking me to a beautiful and secret spot in search of one of Britain's most endangered mammals, the otter.
So her territory, the main areas that we see her, are from here around to the river mouth.
Yeah.
Now I was here the other morning fishing with a gentleman just over there, and she actually came in right across the river mouth.
This is a good vantage point.
Fresh water where she needs to wash.
A lot of people think they're sea otters, of course they're not.
No.
They're river otters. They have to go to fresh water every day.
They do quite well around here, as you can see. There's nobody about apart from us. Crystal clear waters, everything they need.
Oh, it's pristine. The waters here are astonishing.
Otters are incredibly elusive creatures, and seeing one in the wild is really very rare. The best way is to search for evidence of their droppings, known as spraint.
It's a really good spot you've picked. Local knowledge you can't beat. These rocks are covered in feeding sign.
Yeah, there's spraint everywhere.
Spraint everywhere, broken shell, everything.
After 4 hours of waiting, finally there's movement in the water.
Is it a seal or an otter? Yeah. Yeah, a seal. For a minute it looked like an otter. They're beautiful to watch. I love watching seals.
Sadly, it's a no-show from the otter, but our hours here certainly weren't in vain. And as we're heading off, Mitchell tells me about something rather special happening right now out at sea. So I'm on my way to the south of the island, to the port of Elgol.
Oh, nice to see you. Thank you.
I'm travelling across the water to a cluster of rocks in the shadow of the Coolin Mountains and home to a large seal colony. Joining me is marine biologist Ellie McLennan.
This is a resident population, so there's about 150, 200 seals here.
When they're dry like that, they really blend in well, don't they, with the rocks?
Yeah, really good colour variation though. I mean, they'll go anything from almost black to really pale, like this one here is almost white.
Yeah, look at this, it's got a stripe through it.
Yeah.
In fact, 90% of the UK's population of common seals, like these, can be found in Scottish waters.
It's playing.
This is their place.
This is.
Wow, look at that. They're such curious animals, aren't they? They look ungainly on land, but in the water, they're amazing.
Oh yeah, very, very agile in the water. They actually use more energy on land, hauling themselves up to rest, than they do when they're hunting in the water.
I don't believe that.
The females will be very pregnant at the moment. They're due to pup Usually around the first couple of weeks of June.
Yep.
Although I think there is one pup has already arrived.
Really?
Which we might be able to see. It'll be very small and it'll be jet black. And it will probably be low, close to the waterline. When they're born, they're ready to go in the water. They're actually born below the high water mark, so that when the next tide comes in, they're ready to swim.
Amazing.
Most people think of seal pups being pure white, but these common seals shed their white fur before being born, starting life with a darker version of their adult coat.
That call might be a sign of a pup.
I'm looking, yeah.
They're usually silent unless they're calling to a pup.
Is that the pup there?
It is.
Look how tiny that is. Oh, look at that. Having a rest. What, about 2 days, 3 days old?
About 2 days old, yeah.
Oh.
So it'll be weighing about 8 to 10 kilos at the moment. And it'll feed on its mother's milk for the first 4 to 6 weeks.
And pretty good weight gain, I imagine, during that period.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. The milk is about 50% fat, and about 85% of what the pup consumes will then be turned into blubber.
The first pup of the season, isn't that magic?
It's time to head back over the water, with my trip to this wondrous isle nearly over. But it seems I'm in for one last treat before I leave, as a golden eagle makes an appearance soaring above.
Wonderful sight. I could watch that bird all day long. It's so majestic. And it makes our puny efforts at moving through this landscape seem completely ridiculous. It's wonderful. Look at that. That is the classic view of an eagle. Wow. You know, native people all over the world considered eagles to have a special affinity with the Creator because they flew so high. I think they're right. Well, I was excited about coming to Skye, and it hasn't disappointed me. It really is an amazing place. Some of the wildlife I've seen here has been beautiful. That seal pup, the first of the season. What a privilege to be able to see that. And then there was the white-tailed eagle chasing a gull. That was sheer poetry. But you know, even if I hadn't seen any wildlife at all, I still wouldn't be disappointed, because the Isle of Skye is a star in its own right. The form of the land, the geology here is so stunning. It really is one of the jewels in the crown that is wild Britain.